Hi everyone, this is Jeff Crone and I'm the librarian at NECB, and this webinar is about APA, about American Psychological Association citation style. And the point of this webinar is to try to help lower your anxiety about APA. I know APA can be a source of anxiety for a lot of students because there are a great many rules to it, but the number of rules that really are going to impact you are significantly less than what is in the publication manual of the APA. And also want to talk to you about some of the sources that you can use for helping to get information on APA. And this is the agenda. So we're going to start with an introduction to citation styles in APA, talk about how you organize a paper in APA style. I'm going to give you some examples of sources cited in APA in the reference list, which is in the back part of the paper. I'm going to also talk about in-text citations, which I know trouble some students. And lastly, I'm going to talk to you about some of the sources that will help you with APA that you can refer to. So let's start with the introduction to citation styles in APA. So what is a citation style? Well, it's simply a set of rules, guidelines that ensures clear and consistent presentation of written material. I mean, if we didn't have rules or guidelines on how you were going to provide the information about sources that you use in your paper, it would be anarchy. So we want to have some standardization. That's the point of a citation style. Citation styles deal with a number of different aspects of your paper, with headings, organization of the paper, citation of references in the back of the paper, how the tables and exhibits are presented, punctuation, length, tone of bias. There are actually more than 6,000 citation styles. I've never seen an exact number. I know that EndNote, which is probably the most powerful bibliographic management tool on the market today, actually provides the information on how to cite over 6,000. But a lot of these citation styles are specific to journals. There are some of the most commonly used styles. Aside from APA, there's the Chicago Manual of Style, and you can see what the different fields. Modern Language Association, or MLA, you may have heard of. It's heavily used in the humanities. Various disciplines, such as chemistry, math, physics, they have their own citation styles that are heavily used. We use APA at NECB because we're a business college, and business being an applied social science. So APA is heavily used in the social sciences. Just as a point of information, APA was originated in 1929. And this may be a little bit of trivia, but it's really important to know. APA style, we're currently using the 6th edition. The 6th edition was released in July of 2009. I know there are some students who prefer to do Google searches on the internet and find citation guides that they like. A lot of citation guides, some of them are very well done out on the internet. They're done by college libraries or maybe writing labs at colleges. If you want to do that, more power to you. However, be very careful. Make sure that you're not using 5th edition. I've noticed when I've done Google searches and looked for other citation guides, there are still many 5th edition guides out there on the internet, and you want to make sure that you're not using 5th edition because there was some significant changes when APA went over to 6th edition. So just make sure of that. So now let's talk about how to organize a paper in APA style. There are a number of different things which APA weighs in on as far as giving rules or guidance as how the paper should be presented. Whether it should be typed, it should be double-spaced, margins on all sides. They also weigh in as far as what type of font and point, page header at the top of every page. It should have a title page, abstract, main body, and references. This is something which you might want to talk to your professor about if it's a very short writing assignment. I can understand if a paper was, say, 5 to 7 or 10 or 15 pages, then it would call for a title page and an abstract, main body of the paper, as well as a reference list at the end. But there are sometimes very short writing assignments in college, maybe 250 words or 300 words. In that case, maybe your faculty member does not expect a title page or an abstract. Actually, an abstract is just a brief summary of the paper. Could very well be that the abstract is as long as the paper itself. So a very good question you might want to ask your professor if the instructions are to provide the assignment in APA style and it's very short, and ask, do you really want a title page or an abstract? Let me show you at this point a source which I think would be very helpful. I'm not getting ahead of myself here, but the Purdue OWL Writing Lab produces a guide on APA, and it is outstanding. It's a great many colleges in the United States link to this website, and for good reason. One, the authority of the information, the accuracy of the information on this website is superb. They actually correct errors found errors and correct them in the APA publication manual, which is sort of the Bible of APA. So it's very authoritative. Also, I think it's the design of the website is excellent. One thing though, is we're talking about the format of a paper, and I direct students to this a lot lot because I think it's very well done. APA sample paper, if you just click on there and click on here, you'll get an example of a paper, and it's terrific. You can download this. I think it's 11 pages long, just showing how to format it. And this, again, as I say, there's a reference question that I commonly get from students. Can you give me an example of how to format a paper? Well, here you are. So you just find that at the APA website. Let me go back over to our presentation here. So let me talk to you about and review with you a number of different sources that are commonly used by students in papers. We can sort of dissect them and just analyze the different parts of a reference source. So let's start with books. And this is two examples of books in print with one author. And I want to just go through and just sort of analyze these citations with you so you get an idea of what the basic rules are. So look here, this is the author. And the author of a book, whether it's a journal article or anything, the standard format is last name, comma, then the initials. If this was John Austin, it wouldn't be John Austin or Austin, comma, John. It's Austin, comma, J.H. Then there's a date in parentheses, period, and then this is the title. And you'll see the title of the book is in italics. Always the first letter of the first word is in uppercase. Also, the first letter of the first word after a colon or a semicolon or a question mark or a dash is put in uppercase, and everything else is lowercase. That's very important. If you can just remember that basic rule about a title, then you're all the way through this. Look here again. This here, another example, this is uppercase. This is uppercase. This is uppercase. You know why? Because United States is a proper noun. If it's a proper noun, that's also in uppercase. After the title of the book is the place of location, the location where the publisher is, and the publisher. So it's Cambridge, Massachusetts. MIT Press was the publisher of this particular book. Here are two more books, but there's more than one author. Here you would have, again, last name, initial. Then if you've got another author, it's going to be comma, an ampersand, and again, the same pattern here. You have the last name, comma, initial, then we have the date. This is uppercase, right? This because it's the first letter of the first word. It goes down here. This is going to be uppercase because it's following a colon, and everything else is in lowercase, and the whole title is in italics. Again, this is the place of publication and the name of the publisher. Go down here. These are three authors. Again, the same format. Author's last name, initials. Look at the commas and the spacing here. This is the ampersand, last name, initials. You never spell out the first name or the middle name. It's always abbreviated. This is the date of publication. And again, look at the title. It's all in italics here. This is in uppercase because it's the first letter of the first word. After the colon, uppercase. And the rest is in lowercase. Place of publication and the publisher. Now, on occasion, you'll find no author for a book. In that case, you start the book with the title, then the year, and then the place of publication and the publisher. Same here. If there's an edition, you put the edition statement in after the title. But again, no author, and that does come on occasion. Start with the title of the book. No publication date given. This is something else that will come up on occasion. So the author's name was Smith. M is the initial. You put an ND for no date. Then the title, again, you can see the same thing, uppercase, everything else in lowercase, in italics, place of publication, publisher. Sometimes an individual is not the author, but rather an organization, in which case, or sometimes called a corporate author. In this case, American Medical Association. An American Medical Association, in this case, is not only the author, but also the publisher. So it would be American Medical Association starting here. Date, then there's a title here. Remember, there's everything lowercase except for that first letter of the first word. There's an addition in this case, and then the place of publication. We don't have to repeat American Medical Association down here because they are both the author as well as the publisher. Now, ebooks. Ebooks you're going to see more and more. We have a couple of big databases at the library, Books 24/7, and the eBrewery database, which are great databases for doing research. If you happen to be using an ebook, similar format. This is the author over here. You can recognize once again its author, last name, initials. You have the year of publication. Again, no change whether the book is in print or online. Same rules apply. Uppercase, everything else lowercase except here. There should be no space there. And then see this DOI here. I'm going to talk about that in a minute, but just the DOI stands for Digital Object Identifier. About 80% of material published today, whether they're articles in journals or books, have DOI numbers assigned to them. One would think of a DOI is it's like a social security number for a book or an article. It's something that identifies that. It's unique to that. And if there happens to be one, you need to put it in the citation. I'm going to show you in a couple slides an example of where to find a DOI, but it'll be in the database when you find that particular item. If there is no DOI, which again is about 20% of what's out there published today does not have a DOI, then you would just simply put in the website for the publisher or the database. In this case, it came from something called Net Library. So again, you see the format, same as with its print, author, title, place of publication, publisher, and then retrieved from, and then the URL for the database. Here, you will on occasion find ebooks out on the web for free, and it's not from a database. Again, the same format, author, last name, initial. There happens to be no date of publication here, so you put ND. Here, this is in uppercase. This is in lowercase. I've got this in uppercase because that's a proper noun, so that has to be in uppercase. And this is retrieved from, and that's the website. Go down here. So articles. Let's talk about articles because business is much more of a journal-based discipline than books, and so a lot of the sources that you'll use for papers and other assignments you have at NACB will most likely be articles in newspapers, magazines, or scholarly journals. This is an example of an article found in a scholarly journal. And APA distinguishes between different types of scholarly journals depending on whether it's found in a library database, and I'll show you in the next few slides. Again, look at the format here. This is the author, regardless of whether it's an article or a book, the same rules apply as far as authors. It's again the last name, comma, the initial for the first name, and same here, an ampersand being between the two authors. Date of publication, just like a book. However, this is where things change here a little bit. There's two titles when you think about an article in a journal. There's the title of the article itself and the title of the journal in which that article was published. So here, the rule for the title of an article is the similar rules as for the title of a book, except you don't put it in italics. It's the first letter of the first word. Everything else is in lowercase. This is uppercase, right, because it's following a colon, and the rest is lowercase. What gets italicized is the title of the journal, and here you don't change the case. You just simply reproduce it the way it appears. This is the volume number. With publications, most journals have volume numbers. This is the issue numbers, and these are the pages on which it appeared in this particular issue. And this is the publisher URL. With this information here, you can usually find this in the citation. So when you're in a database like EBSCO Business Source Complete, you'll see the volume number and the issue number, and you want to make sure. And also, this is a little error here that I see oftentimes. This has to be in italics too, just like the title of the journal. So I mentioned about DOIs. This is an example, a screenshot of an article that I retrieved from an EBSCO business database. And you can see here where the DOI would be. So when you bring up the article in the database, that's the title of the article. These are the authors. That's the title of the journal in which was published. That's the date, volume 46, issue number 1, the pages. Here is the DOI number. If it didn't have that, and that will come up on occasion, you just simply don't put in the DOI number. But if there is one, you're supposed to put it in as part of the citation. This is another screenshot that I pulled from a citation for an article from this Indian Journal of Ophthalmology. The DOI is down here. So the expectation that APA places on you is that you will make a good faith effort to look for the DOI. You're not expected to spend hours pulling out your hair, but you make an effort to look in the record to see, is there a DOI here? If you can't find it after a few seconds, just accept the fact that there's no DOI, and then just put in the URL for the publisher. So these are articles. Again, the APA makes a distinction between different types of journals. So there are journals which for pagination, that is pages, where every issue, they start with page number 1. And then there are other journals which start with continue with the page numbers from the previous issue. So for example, let's say you have a journal that is what's called a quarterly. There are 4 issues, maybe January, April, and then 2 others in the rest of the year. It may be that the pages for the first issue are pages 1 through 250. And then for the second issue, the second of this quarterly, it starts again with page 1 and then goes to page 232 or whatever. And it continues on for the third and fourth issues of the year. There are some journals which have what's called continuous pagination, and that is the first issue of the year, it starts with 1 and runs, say, to page 250. The second issue that comes out starts with page 251 and then continues on to, say, 482, and then the third issue starts with 483. So that's called continuous pagination. If it's pagination by issue, that is starting with page 1, this is how you format it. And you can see it's very similar format to some of the other articles that I showed you. If it is by volume, then you leave out the issue number, and here you put the issue number, here you don't put the issue number. So that's something to remember when you're citing an article in a scholarly journal. If it doesn't have a DOI, then you would just put in the URL for the publisher. If it is freely available on the internet, you would put retrieved from and then the URL for the article where you found it on the web. And again, the same rules apply regardless of whether it's a journal in one that's continuous pagination or not continuous pagination, whether it's DOI, whether it's freely available on the internet. None of these rules change. It's only down here where there's a distinction. Sometimes you'll be using a journal in print. There's still a lot of print used, even though we don't have an on-ground library. Same format, except there's nothing here as far as retrieved from. You just simply stop with the page numbers. And again, it's the same rules as far as author, same rules as far as the article title, as well as the journal title. This is now a magazine article. Magazine article is more like something from Forbes or Fortune or any one of thousands of different publications, but not a scholarly source. Here, there's a slight distinction from the scholarly sources. Author is treated the exact same way. The the date rather changes. It's not just 2004. You also put in the month and day if that happens to be available. Sometimes it may just be a monthly, let's say August 2004, but if there's a day, you want to put that in as well. No change in the rules as far as how the article title is formatted. You can see these are in uppercase because they're proper nouns. New Yorker. New Yorker, that's the publication itself, is in italics, just like with the scholarly journal. This is the volume number, that's in italics, issue number, the pages, and retrieved from, and that's the website for the New Yorker that you put in there. If it was in print, again the same format. There doesn't happen to be a date. It's just simply a day. It doesn't just happens to be the month and year. This is how you would put it in. And this is uppercase because it's a proper noun. Proper noun, that's lowercase. Publication, that's the volume number, issue number. This is a newspaper. Newspaper is a little bit different, again, from the scholarly journals and magazines. Author there's no change in the rules. The date is like a magazine, so you've got the year and then the month and day. The title of the article, no different from other types of journals or magazines. It's still uppercase. That's uppercase because it's a proper noun. This is in italics because that's the publication in which the article appeared. The minor distinction here from the journals, you put the PP in here. If it was just a page 1, it would just be P.1. But if there's more than one page, it's going to be PP and then the page numbers. If it had been pages 1 through 2, you just put 1-2. But here it happens to be on different pages that are separated from each other. Then retrieve from the URL for the publisher. Here is another example. This is from the internet, freely available. Author, date, as I said, author, or rather a year, month, day, uppercase, Boston Globe's in italics, retrieved from, and the website for the Boston Globe. You don't have to put the whole long URL, just enough to be able to guide the reader, if they're looking at this reference, at what website you found this. So our newspaper article in print, By now you're probably familiar with the format here: author, last name, initials, year, month, day. That's in uppercase. Everything else is lowercase. This is the publication in italics, and this is just on one page, so it's a P, and then A4 it happens to be. So documents, reports, and websites. We've got a lot of documents, reports I see in the papers that I grade that students use. So in this case, it's an organization called the Sea Bass Restoration Project, which is the author. This is the date. This is the publication, Sea Bass, this proper noun, retrieved from, and then the URL. Let's go on. Documents is another example. This is the authors, no date in this case. You will at times find no date. I oftentimes get a reference question from students saying, what am I going to do if I can't find the date? Again, what's expected is a good faith effort on your part to look around on the website and see if you can find a date. If you can't, you can't. You just put an ND and then the title of the report and then the URL. Here, this is an annual report. This is the Ford Motor Company. They published in 2010 their 2009 annual report, retrieved from, and then the URL. So let's talk about in-text citations. This is another, I know, of an issue with students that they find rather frustrating. In-text citations are they're needed for several types of information that you put in your paper. One, a direct quote, a specific idea for like a statistic, or you're paraphrasing something. Every time you cite a source with an in-text cite, that source must also be listed in the reference list at the end of your paper. The point of an in-text citation, to me, makes perfectly good sense. If you have a paper and in the body of the paper, let's say you wrote that between 2000 and 2010, per capita GDP in Spain rose by 25%. So you have that statistic in your paper. If you didn't have an in-text citation, and you did, however, include the source from which you got that data in your reference list, without an in-text citation, the reader would have to go to that reference list, which might have 5 or 10 or 30 different reference sources, and have to look for it and try to figure out, where did this number come from? Well, what an in-text citation does is it links that statistic that you have in your paper with the reference list. And I'm going to show you what an in-text citation looks like, but it helps the reader know exactly what source you used and where in the source that information came from. So there are, however, according to APA, some types of information that only require an in-text citation and do not need that reference listed in the reference list. And this is I know a cause of confusion for some students. If the information according to APA is not recoverable, then it is not put in the reference list. It is only treated with an in-text citation. And these are the types of sources that are not put in the reference list at the end of the paper. These are the types of sources that only require an in-text citation. Non-recoverable sources, that is something which it's impossible for somebody else, I assume, to be reading your email or your letters or be privy to your telephone conversations. If there's something which the information came from an email, let's say you emailed the vice president of the bank that you happen to work at, and they gave you some information, that email is not in your reference list. It's just as an in-text citation. You can see there's all different types of information that's considered non-recoverable by APA. So what you would do is, when you format that in-text citation, this is what it would look like. You would say personal communication, this is the date, and this is the quote. And you are given some discretion as to how you do that, but generally it's personal communication and then the date of that personal communication. If you use an entire website, not a document from a website, but rather you're just referring to the entire website, like Consumer Reports, or in this case you made a sentence and you wrote a sentence and you said WebMD is an excellent resource for healthcare information, you could just put the URL there in the website. But if it's a document, an annual report, say from the Ford Motor Company website, then that's a document and that has to be in the reference list. But if it's an entire website, you would just simply put it as an in-text citation in the text of your paper. So this is the format. There are different types of in-text citations. If there's no author, then just use the first few words of the title. So Economic Reality 2006, that's where this information came from. Here's another one that if it was, I mentioned earlier about a statistic. If, for example, you use some statistic from a source authored by a person named Donaldson, you would put this would be the format here, and so you would know, the reader, if you read your paper, would say, well, gosh, this came from Donaldson. So they're down to the reference list and say, oh, yep, there's Donaldson from 1982, and on page 163 of this Donaldson book or article is where this number came from in your paper. Um, there's the these are two more examples. APA gives you some discretion as to how you provide this information, as long as the key pieces of information about the source are in your paper. So, for example, this is Mitchell is the author. In 2007 was when Mitchell published that particular source, and on page 213 is that quote. So in these are two different examples. You could have put Mitchell and then the year and paged here. You could have done it this way. So the APA does give you discretion on how you present the information in a sentence. Sometimes you may want to have a quote, and if it's 40 words or more, this is the format in which it's supposed to be presented in your paper. And at the end, you put the page number from where that came, and then again, this is the author and the year of publication, so the reader can go to the reference list and know this one by Drucker in '85. On page 20 comes this particular quote. These are different formats of in-text citations. We are seeing, of course, more and more information these days being drawn from websites. Sometimes if it's, you've got, in this case, it's two authors, year of publication, page number. Here, it's an entire chapter rather than a page number. Sometimes, and this is going to happen more and more, as I said, with electronic sources, there are no page numbers. Or sometimes you'll find an online article and there are no page numbers. It just runs on. I mean, it's an HTML. It's not like a PDF document where there are pages. Here, you can put in paragraph 2. What APA, the rule is that you always must remember the reader, and the point of these citations is to help them track down the information. So if it's paragraph 2, or it's put in some sort of information that's going to help the reader understand where this came from. Moving forward here, this is, you can, again, you've given some discretion. You can put the date and the author in both in parens, or you could have done it this way. You could have done this way. All three others acceptable. Again, APA gives you discretion how you want to present the information. When there are two authors and it's within the parens, you put an ampersand. So you have that, or you could just have written out the sentence like this. Again, both of these examples are perfectly fine. They present the same information, telling the reader this is the author and this is the date of publication. Here are more examples here. If you have no author, again, just the title of the publication here. Again, the title of publication and the year, and you're given discretion on how you want to present the information in your paper. So let's talk about sources to help you with APA. There are a number of different ones. There is the EasyBib resource. There's the APA Quick Guide. There are databases. There is the Purdue OWL website, which I introduced you to earlier. There is the APA website, and then there's the reference librarian, which is me. The Purdue OWL website. This one here. Let me start with that one. As I mentioned to you earlier, and I showed you that sample paper. Just to get to it, just simply type in do a Google search. Type in 3 words: Purdue, as in Purdue University. Type in the word owl for the bird, and type in APA, and that will bring you to the website. Terrific website, and it gives you lots of examples of different types of sources, journal articles, books. Very well done. I strongly recommend that as a source. The other two sources, I want to go to the library here. This is the homepage of the library, and there are a couple of other webinars that I teach on a regular basis, and they're also taped, and I suggest that you watch them if you haven't seen them already. That will give you an introduction to the library. But we also have here at the library homepage are tabs on how the library is organized. If you click on APA resources, you can come over here and you can see there's a lot of really good guides as far as doing online sources and reference lists. This is APA Quick Guide. If you've taken the Information Literacy course, which is taught on the undergraduate level, this is a 16-page PDF guide which provides examples of in-text citations and how to cite some of those commonly used sources. If you go through this, I strongly recommend that you print it out. You'll find actually some of the examples which I've used here in this PowerPoint presentation I lifted directly from this. I wrote this, so I'm not plagiarizing. I wrote this guide several years ago. So this is a very good source, and it's right here in the library in the APA resource section. Another source that I want to direct you to is so that's APA Quick Guide. Let me show you EasyBib. EasyBib is a resource that we license. You'll see it scattered in several places at the library. You'll see here a link to it right here. One thing that I would recommend that you consider doing is creating an account with EasyBib. It's free. We pay for EasyBib, so you have the right to be able to do that. If you click on this, it'll bring you right into the library, but what you might want to do is click on this little thing. This little link here brings you over to this section of the library. You'll get a little bit more information about here. If you want to register and create an account, click on here. It'll bring you into EasyBib. EasyBib provides citation help for a number of different formats, MLA, Chicago, and several others. It defaults to MLA, so please be aware of that and make sure you click on. We can't change the default, so make sure you switch over to APA. I would hate to see that you put a lot of work into using this resource and you've created all your citations in MLA rather than APA. Once you go to APA, you can then you see there's a number of different types of sources that you can use. What you do is you can key in the information about the source, that is the author, article title, journal title, other information, and it will take that information, it'll put it into APA format for you. EasyBib, like other tools on the market today, is not 100% perfect. There will be on occasion errors in the citations that it creates, and it is important that you be aware of that and that you review the citations that it creates just to make sure that it's correct, because ultimately it's your paper that you're submitting and you're responsible for it. So this is a great tool, but just make sure that you review the citations that it creates. You can see there's books, journals, databases, all 59 options. There are actually a rather large number of different types of sources that you could use. It could have been a doctoral dissertation, it could have been a court case, a federal statute, a manuscript, some data, and you click on any one of these and it'll bring up a page that you can use to key in the information. If we went back to the journal here, what you could do is a couple of ways you can do it. You can manually cite it, or you can type in the information here. This is a let me click over here. What behind here is this huge database with millions of articles in it, citations of articles, and you could run a search. Now I just typed in "women rule shattering the executive glass ceiling" as an example. Let's say that's the title of the article that I'm using for my paper. I can type it in there and see if it's in the database. This is a time saver. Click Cite It, and what it does, it runs a search, and once it runs that search, it'll bring up the ones that it thinks may be the one that you're looking for, and it just happens to be this one. So I'll click Cite, and it brings up and it fills in all these fields. And once I click Create Citation, it will take this information and it will put it in APA format. Now in some cases it doesn't fill in all the fields, in which case you'll have to manually type it in. So I see that they left off the page numbers, and I also see there's an error here in the article title. But let's click on the Create Cite and just see what it does. So Create Citation. And this is the citation it created. So I know, and we've gone over this before, we're showing all the different examples. This is correct, right? So the author's last name, initial, date of publication is fine. But here, this should be in lowercase, the R. This is S is in uppercase, good, because it follows the colon. Executive, however, so that E, G, C, all of those should be in lowercase. So you would have to click on Edit and manually edit and bring those in lowercase. So that's the point that I made earlier. This is a great tool, but it's not 100% perfect. Ultimately, you're responsible for the citations you submit as part of your paper, so you want to review the work that it does for you. I mentioned earlier as far as registering for EasyBib, what you can do is go over here to Sign Up, and when you click on Sign Up, you can register, and again, this is a resource that we license for you, so it doesn't cost you anything. Sign up here and you'll have an account, and I've already created an account for myself. And what the great thing about when you've created an account is you can create projects, and with these projects, and I created a couple of little projects here, what you can do is you create a new project and you can name it and make sure you change it to APA. You'll create the project, and well, I haven't filled this out, but once you create the project, as you start adding references, you can as you start putting references in APA, you can add them to your project. So in time, you may have a number of different projects because there are a number of different papers that you're working on. You can save them in here, and you can just continue to build a bibliography. And it's really a very good tool, I think, because it may be that you've used a number of sources in this year, and then next year when you write another paper, you may say, gee, what sources did I use for that other paper? You can go back to this. So you'll have a number of different projects. But the only way you're going to be able to do this is by registering for an account. So again, that's an important thing to do. Let me show you also, I wanted to show you another citation tool that you can use, and it's in the databases themselves. Both EBSCO Business Source Complete and ProQuest Central are big databases that are heavily used by our students for doing research. And one database that I'll show you here, EBSCO Business Source Complete, let's go into that. And when you go in here, you could, if you wanted, to run a search, and I'll show you, it has a citation feature. Let's say we've got an article, and I've got one called 7 Practices of Successful Organizations. That's an article in the California Management Review, and I think that's distinctive enough to come up. Let's try this here. Yes, and okay, let's say this is the article that you've found and want to use in your paper. And over here, do you see this cite? If you click on Cite, what it will do, it will put it in APA format for you. Actually, you could see it offers a number of different, American Medical Association, MLA, a number of different citations. But take a look at this here. This is a common problem, and I want to make sure you're aware of this. What you can do is you can copy and paste this and put this into your paper, but look here. They got the author correct, right? They got the year correct. Look at the title of the article. This should be in lowercase, lowercase, lowercase. This is correct. That's correct. But there's an error, and you're responsible for reviewing the citations created by this database. There are many times the database gets it right, and it's perfect. It's APA perfect. Other times, lots of errors. And just be aware of that, and you're responsible for checking it. So I've talked to you about EasyBib. I talked to you about the APA Quick Guide, about the library databases, Purdue. The APA website it's got some very good information. You can just Google just APA or American Psychological Association, and it'll bring you to the website. There's some very interesting information there as guides as far as being able to format an APA. However, one last thing I want to recommend is we have a reference desk, which is chat staff, which is 24/7. The 24/7 is terrific as far as doing reference questions. If it's an APA question, I would recommend that you contact me directly. I'll get back to you very quickly, and I'd be more than happy to provide you with some guidance if you're stuck on how to cite a particular publication, a particular source, or whatever. Please contact me. I'd be delighted to help you. Thank you for spending some time with me. APA is I know, a source of anxiety. I hope this has eased a little bit for you. But we have a lot of different resources available to help you navigate APA, and most importantly, any questions, please feel free to contact me. Good luck with your studies. Thank you.